praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I want to say peace to each and every one of you in the name of His Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. So it's a blessing each and every single time that I can come before to preach a message contained in His Word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. In today's message, I want to deal with a common misconception, and that misconception is that Christ can return at any time. You know, recently I was doing some research, not on this particular topic, but indirectly this kept coming up, you know, and people were saying that, you know, Christ can come back at any time. Christ is coming back next month. Christ is coming back next year. Christ is coming back in 2 years. And while I was definitely familiar with that, even I've been in the Word more than over 20 years, and even, you know, can remember people saying that when I was, you know, in my youth. The Lord can come back at any time. But that's just not accurate. And that's not accurate according to prophecy. That's not accurate according to what Christ Himself prophesied of His return. So we're going to look at that. We're going to go to Matthew the 24th chapter and verse 1. In Matthew 24 and 1, we see this discourse between Christ and His disciples pertaining to His return. I'm going to pick it up at verse 1. It says, "And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and His disciples came to Him to show Him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." So now He was prophesying of the imminent destruction of Jerusalem. And that happened when Titus and the Romans came and decimated Jerusalem, destroyed the temple down to the foundation. That occurred in the year 70 AD. And so He was telling them, just, you know, this is just some years, decades prior, He's telling them, hey, this is going to be destroyed. And so they asked Him a question, and the question that they asked, the implications go far beyond 70 AD. They even go beyond us. They lead to the second coming of the Mashiach, or the Christ. So in verse 3 it says, "And as He sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto Him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" Verse 4, "And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." So He warned about deception. He warned about wars. He warned about pestilence, earthquake, and disease. He says, "And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." So He tells you about the impending persecution. He goes on and warn about false prophets again, "And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." But notice what He says here in verse 15. So now this is somewhat twofold, because it is speaking to what the decimation that was going to come then, but it goes beyond that into the time just prior to His return. Because remember the question, the initial question, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" That's why the scope of this prophecy is so large. He says, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand." So now let's go to Daniel and read this. This is Daniel the 11th chapter. Daniel the 11th chapter, and we want to read about this one who is Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, who is Antiochus Epiphanes? Antiochus Epiphanes was a Seleucid leader who foreshadows the man of sin. The man of sin, or the son of perdition, is commonly referred to as the Antichrist. See, before Christ, and we'll read this as well in the writings of Paul the Apostle, before Christ comes again, the man of sin will come first. Okay? So now, notice, and we're going, and so in Antiochus, he refers you back Christ refers you back to Antiochus Epiphanes, because Antiochus Epiphanes foreshadows this man of sin. So it says, and in verse, I'm in verse 31, Daniel 11 and verse 31, and arms shall stand on his part. And it's talking about this man. And arms are armies. And they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. So now, he came, when Antiochus Epiphanes came on the scene, he defiled the temple. Okay, and we'll read that. And shall take away the daily sacrifice. So he took the daily sacrifice away, because they had a daily sacrifice in honor of the Most High. He took that away. Then it says, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. So he defiled the temple. So now, I'm going to read this in Maccabees. And I'm going to read it in Maccabees, because Maccabees is history. Okay? So now, this is, I'm in 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse 54. It says, now in the 15th day of the month, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar. Okay? And builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they found, they burnt them with fire. And wheresoever was found with any, the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Okay, so let's go further in history. I want to read Josephus. In Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews, it reads, I'm going to pick it up, let's see. It says, and when the king had built an idol altar upon God's altar, he slew swine upon it, and so offered a sacrifice neither according to the law nor the Jewish religious worship in that country. He compelled them to forsake the worship which they paid their own God, and to adore those whom he took to be gods, and made them build temples and raise idol altars in every city and village, and offer swine upon them every day. So this was a very oppressive regime, and this is what led to the Maccabean revolt. And this is, Hanukkah is in honor of that victory against these forces. But that's how it was going to be prior to, people need to realize, persecution like this is going to happen prior to his coming. Okay? Just like it was persecution in the first century prior to the Lord's coming, there's going to be persecution again. Okay? Now I'm going back to Daniel now. In Daniel, the 7th chapter, concerning this man, it says in verse 25, 7 and 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. So he's going to be, so that whole idea about a rapture is false. The idea that that the Lord's coming back at any moment is false. The Lord's not coming back tomorrow. The Lord's not coming back next week. He's not coming back next month. He is not coming back next year. He's not coming back the year after that. Why? Let's keep reading. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. Notice what it says here. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Now, why is that significant? Until a time and times and the dividing of times, because that is the duration of great tribulation. See, before the Lord returns, there will be a time of temptation, an hour of temptation, great tribulation. Let's go back to Matthew the 24th chapter. Because in Matthew the 24th chapter, he says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, right, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth let him understand. Now this could be an idolatry, you know, this is interpreted in a number of ways. It's interpreted as an idolatrous image in the temple, defiling it, right? But also speaking of a man that's going to be in the temple. So before we read this, right? Well, let's read it so we don't lose that point of great tribulation. He says in verse 15, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth let him understand. Then he says, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Now they should have fled prior to around that time of the siege, before the siege, right? And the utter destruction that came. And that was the total severing off from nationhood as far as Israel. When I say that, I mean, because the Lord's going to redeem his people. But it was at that moment, even on all the turmoil that they had faced, the incursions, the captivities, Israel was still a people, still a nation. We lost that at that particular time. And so they went into captivity, and they went into the interior of Africa, into the depths of Africa, and settled amongst the people there, and ultimately were taken captive when you saw the emergence of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so you already had, it's history where you can read where you had Israelite settlements in Africa way before 70 AD. You can read in certain sections of portions of certain tribes going into the interior at different times of different captivities. Okay, this is why you see the Limba, you see Beta Yisrael, you see etc. them scattered into the diaspora. Okay, but now he tells you, so they should have fled then, because that was under destruction. But then he says, for then shall be great, in verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. That goes beyond 70 AD. That, as bad as that wasn't the worst time since the beginning of the world. And you know this is not talking about then, because he said, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Okay? So now, you're going to have great tribulation. How long is great tribulation? Time, times, and the dividing of time. Let's go to Revelation. Just to make sure we know how long great tribulation is. I don't want to lose that. And after that, I'm going to go back to this man of sin that has to be revealed. Revelation, the 11th chapter, in this particular prophecy, it says in verse 1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. Then it says something peculiar. It says, but the court which is without the temple, or outside the temple, leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. So we just read he's going to wear out the saints. The times, and the dividing of times. That's 3.5 years. How long was 42 months? That's 3.5 years. This is the duration of great tribulation. Go to and it says in verse 3, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 days. Closing sackcloth, 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. Revelation, the 12th chapter. Because there's no rapture, but he does has a place of safety during this time of great tribulation. It says in verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 days, 1,260 days, 42 months, times, and the dividing of time. So now you must have a time of great tribulation before the Lord returns. The man of sin must be revealed before the Lord returns. And now let's go to the writings of Paul, 2 Thessalonians, because Paul tells you about this manifestation of this wicked one. He is the embodiment of being Antichrist. He refers to himself even as the vicar of Christ. But this is 2 Thessalonians 2:1. It says, now I'm reading this, and to give it context, understand that those at Thessalonica were concerned about the coming of the Lord, and he is going to soothe their concerns with this very fact. Paul is the apostle. It says in verse 1, now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not so shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. So that time is not at hand just yet. Don't be troubled. He says something has to happen first. Verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means. So again, there's that warning of deception. Because it is very important to know when time, or what time you're in, so you know what's going to happen. He says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So what does that mean? Before Christ comes, two things. Before Christ comes back, the man of sin has to be revealed. The second thing is that there must be a temple. That's why we read in Matthew the 24th chapter, in verse 15, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Where's the holy place? That's the temple. So there's no temple now, but there will be. And that's why it's no coincidence that you see all this push to build a temple, if you've been paying attention. But now let's go to Revelation the 13th chapter, because this man of sin that's going to arise during great tribulation, he's going to bring oppression upon the Lord's people. As it says, he's going to wear out the saints. And look at what it says here. This is Revelation the 13th chapter, because many people come here and they don't realize this is talking about the one who's going to set up shop in the temple. Even this talking about the Pope. All right, but it says and what he's going to be able to do. It says in verse 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound, by sword and did live. See, some people would say, well, some scholars would say that, hey, that's Antiochus Epiphanes put an image in the temple. I would not be shocked if this man does the same thing. Only the difference is that in verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. That's why Daniel was such an important book. Look at what happened at that time. Nebuchadnezzar made an image, and it required everybody to bow down to it. And then he required Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah as well, and they refused. They were willing to give up their life, because as it is written, have no other gods before me. I shall not make unto thee any graven image. Right? So now, that's the kind of mindset you have to have, but that means you won't be able to buy or sell. That means it captures you have to give up your life, because it's to bow down or die. You need to choose death. He that try to save this life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life shall find it. But notice what it says here, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or on their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding, the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So that's vicarious Philadelphia, vicar or replacement for the Son of God. Okay, and that's coming. He's the Antichrist is coming out of Rome, specifically out of Vatican City, which is in Rome, out of the office of the papacy. But now let's go back to Matthew 24, and this is in Matthew 24. And then we want to read when specifically the Lord telling you when he's coming back. Matthew 24, the 24th chapter, and verse 29. Because when is the Lord coming back? Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, coming in the clouds. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So he's not returning until the man of sin is revealed. And that is at the time of great tribulation. And great tribulation is 3.5 years. That's how you know he's not coming back tomorrow. But it would behoove you to get yourself together as if he would, because destruction is on the horizon when it's all said and done. This time, so it's important to know what time we are in. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you will edify.